Good morning, Coffee Talk Nation or community. Welcome to Coffee Talk this morning. We are your hosts, Southborough Youth and Family Services. My name is Sarah Castle. I am the Director of Southborough Youth and Family Services. And with me this morning, I have Megan Island, who's our Assistant Director. Good morning, Megan.
Morning.
Good morning. And Shannon Kaniman, who is our Program Coordinator. Good morning, Shannon.
Good morning, Sarah.
Good morning. We have no guests today. It's just the three of us. Let's start with a toast. I'm so happy to see you two. What's everybody having their coffee mug this morning? Anything good?
Coffee.
Coffee?
Coffee.
Coffee.
But it's lukewarm, as we've had.
I still pretend.
Is it pretend again?
Yeah, I did. I feel like I have to. I know that's weird, but.
I'll get you a glass of water.
Yeah, I should. Actually, I've got it's just not.
There you go.
The same, not quite the same. So how is everyone doing this morning?
Hanging in there.
Hanging in there. Yeah, good. I had kind of an unusual weekend. I feel like my weekend is relative to our topic for today. I went to Boston this weekend, which felt unusual because we have not been in a city for quite a while where we would expect lots of people to be. But to be 100% honest, there were really not a lot of people. It was a beautiful weekend, so there were a lot of people out and about biking and walking. But compared to the Boston I remember, it really was pretty a stark contrast to what I'm used to. So it was quite comfortable, and we spent the whole day outside, and we were visiting with family. And it also felt weird. We stayed overnight, which felt strange too. But, so that's a first for us. Felt weird to see family that we haven't seen in over a year, and it felt really weird to go to a city and then to stay overnight. So it was kind of like ripping a Band-Aid off and just trying lots of new things at once. But it was really nice, but really kind of like a looking over my shoulder sort of experience, like somebody was going to come wag their finger at me or something like that, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that's kind of relative to what we wanted to talk about today. We have been hearing a lot of people, ourselves included, as I just shared, expressing anxiousness or mixed feelings, mixed emotions about what's happening right now with the pandemic, basically. And so we thought it would be worth having some conversation around that, just to sort of validate people's feelings. And we're not here to tell you we're not the authorities on what's okay, what's not at all. In fact, I think that's part of the conversation. So.
Yep.
So Shannon, did you want to start us off?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think there's a lot of good news on the horizon. I think I read last night or this morning that in Massachusetts, it's something like 48% of adults are vaccinated now or have their first vaccine, which is amazing news. And, teenagers up to the age of 16 and older are able to be vaccinated, and they're saying that kids as young as 12 are on the horizon to get it. So it feels like we're not tempting fate anymore by feeling hopeful, but at the same time there's a lot of trepidation. And like you said, Sarah, we're here to talk about the fact that I had made a joke in the promo for this that you know, you're excited, you're vaccinated maybe, and you're out grocery shopping for the first time in a year, and you're picking your own tomatoes, and then somebody 2 aisles over sneezes, and like you're ready to bolt.
Mhm. Hit the
And
deck.
it's deck.
That's what I picture.
Exactly. Right. So, and that's gonna be normal for a long time. And
You know
I think,
what's even, I'm sorry, I was just gonna say what's even worse is if you're that person that has to sneeze. Oh
right,
my gosh.
Yeah.
It's so you feel like you need to run out of the grocery store when that happens too.
right.
because
Or if you
of
start to
how-
cough and want to
Yes.
yell out, like, I'm choking on my own spit right
That's
now.
all. It's
I'm
just a normal
fine.
sneeze.
Yeah.
I inhaled some dust. I promise. I promise.
Well, and
So-
especially right now with allergy season, like
Yes.
Right. Right.
Yes. Yep.
Right.
Yep. So, and I mean, the other thing to talk about too is that, you know, it is only 48% of people are
Mhm.
vaccinated right now, and that we are still in a pandemic. So if
Mhm.
people are feeling anxiety, I mean, the overarching conversation that we have today is that this is okay. The feelings that people are feeling for the most part are okay. And particularly right now, because it's not like everything is back to normal. We're creeping toward a new normal, but we're not quite there yet. So,
Mhm. Mhm. Well, maybe a good place to start would be to sort of, because I think we've experienced a lot in the last year, a range of emotions from loss to grief to, I mean, and everybody's had sort of a different experience with this pandemic and with COVID. Sadly, many of our friends and neighbors have lost loved ones. And so it can range from, loss of a loved one to just, maybe you and your household have not been impacted a ton because maybe you already worked from home. Maybe you don't have children who can't go to school and are staying home with you full time. And so, it's ranged from grief to loss to fear. Lots of day after day living worried in fear, and then I would venture to say trauma.
Yeah.
And I think that some people might be hearing that word and saying that's really too strong of a word to use. But I pulled up a definition of trauma from Megan and I have taught a mental health first aid class, and really by definition, the trauma is any time an individual experiences something that, I should get the actual definition here, but something that any incident experienced by a person that is perceived to be dangerous and threatens serious injury or death. So if we really think about the last year, for a lot of people, we were experiencing something that threatens serious injury or death on a daily basis for a really long time. Now, we're all, again, have had different experiences. But, if you're somebody that was having that experience and really experiencing a heightened state of fear, then you have had a year of trauma.
Yeah.
And Shannon, I know you were talking about different types of trauma also.
Yeah, and I think that that's why for some people they might say, I don't know, does that really fit the bill for me? Because there are quite a few different kinds of trauma, and probably the most common types of trauma would be acute trauma, chronic trauma, and complex trauma. So what most people think of with trauma is that acute trauma. So they've witnessed something or they've experienced something that was pretty horrific. And it's really affected them in their days as they move forward. But for us collectively, we've experienced more of that complex trauma because it's something that's touched us, like you were saying, Sarah, every single day. that there's this little bit of fear, there's grief that we've seen, there's so many different feelings that we've been feeling that are super intense and
Mhm.
brought about this feeling of danger.
Mhm.
And our brains, unfortunately, from when we were cave people, we're wired to that. When how to deal with danger, like how jump in here because it's not coming out of my mouth well,
Yeah.
but
Well, I'm picturing, let's put ourselves back in caves, and let's say a bear comes along. You have a fear response for a reason, as it's a protective factor. It's really important that we have that. But we've when you've sustained that kind of level of fear for that length of time. So you had said complex trauma. I wonder if you meant chronic trauma, or maybe both, actually.
right.
Yeah, because it depends on what you're experiencing. But sustained exposure to those feelings for a length of time. And as Shannon was saying, our brains are sort of wired to protect ourselves and respond accordingly.
That's why you hit the deck in the produce aisle when the person's
right,
2 aisles
right.
over.
Yes. So I was telling these ladies right before we came on that I was listening to a podcast this morning about some of the losses that people have experienced during this pandemic that maybe we don't even realize we were, that kind of, there's some really apparent ones, like, not being able to see our loved ones, not being able to hug and touch one another and just be together. Obvious losses for over 500,000 Americans have lost loved ones. The number is even higher now, and I'm not up to speed on that, but loss of sanity in some cases. I was just picturing last spring being with my children for over 100 and something days, and thank goodness that feels a little bit better now. But so on this podcast, they were talking about, that this woman had a dog that she loved terribly, dearly. It was just her and this dog, but he was a very protective dog to begin with. And because she ended up having to work remotely full time, and because everyone around her was home all the time, and because all of these Amazon and delivery trucks were showing up day in and day out, because that people weren't leaving to go shopping, the dog's behavior became quite intensified. And she unfortunately, she tried all sorts of things. She tried medication for her dog and behavior training, and ultimately the dog was aggressive toward the child. It was a completely unprovoked, but he was just, his protective instinct of his owner was so intense because she was there with him all the time. She had to put him to sleep. And so it's like, then, that's probably not an example that a lot of people can relate to, but maybe, there's been some adjustments that people have had to make that are unique to them that has just sort of added on another layer of loss here. Do either of you, I don't know if anybody has other personal examples there, but I think to add on to that, our country politically has been through a lot this year too. And, that's added on to people's levels of insecurity, and, depending on who you are and again, your experience in this country, you may have added levels of fear that you're living with. And so, so there's just been, to the answer the question as to why at this point, when there's hope on the horizon, when there's a light at the end of the tunnel, why do we have anxiety? And there's so many reasons for that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think one of the most exciting parts, if there can be an exciting part about being anxious, I think so,
Hear
is
you
that,
out. We'll hear you out.
right, but that collectively, because we've all gone through this together, it's mental health struggles are often so internalized and so personal,
Mhm.
and that we feel the need to hide them.
Mhm.
And in this situation, we're in such a unique, wonderful situation in some ways, that when we're feeling that trauma, if we're feeling anxiety, if we're feeling depression, that it's okay to talk about it, because so many other people are feeling the way that you are right
Mhm.
now.
Mhm.
That there's never any shame in any of those things,
Mhm.
but for sure right now, it's not only that people can be sympathetic, people can be empathetic,
Mhm.
and together I think we can heal.
Mhm.
So
That's true.
yeah.
Certainly it can be challenging, also for that reason too, because everybody's going through it together, that depending on the people who are around you, they may not have much left to give.
Mhm.
So I know that one of the messages we intend to share on today's show is that if that's the case, that if you feel your needs are not going met by being able to talk to your friends and family about what you're going through, because maybe they're all going through the same thing and everybody's kind of tapped out, that we highly encourage. Of course, we're biased, but we highly encourage finding a professional to talk to, because that's for you. It's not going to be this reciprocal relationship.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's important.
Right. So what are some other things that we can be doing?
Megan, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, well, I think one of the first things to think about is that it's okay to go as slow as you can. I think just to some extent, people don't necessarily have a choice as to how slow, like in terms of kids going back to school, the school started full time when it starts full time in certain districts and things like that. But when you're thinking about families and decisions that they're making in terms of, who they're going to socialize with, what kinds of activities they're going to do, I think, do what you're comfortable with and what's important to you, starting with, adding things back in that you miss, I think is important too. I know we've all had to stop doing things, and some of those things we might be okay that we don't have in our lives anymore. We all, I think, have noticed that we live really fast-paced lives and are highly
Yeah.
scheduled, right? Maybe not everyone. I know that I'm not a very person. But I think I know that a lot of people I've talked to, that's kind of something they're reflecting on is, I realized that I did a lot of stuff, and do I actually want to be putting all of that back on my plate? And so I think kind of being mindful about that now and thinking, okay, maybe I'll slowly add some things back into our lives. And that it's okay to kind of take small steps and not just say, okay, let's start scheduling every single day, every single activity, all the sports, all the after school stuff. And
Right.
it's all right to do what you feel comfortable with as a person and as a family.
Yeah, that feels like a silver lining too, that to really be able to look at those things that are in your life. Because I mean, I'm sure that all of us can identify that thing, that volunteer thing that you said, okay, fine, I'll do it. Or, that the music lesson that your kid takes and every single night you fight about the trumpet, or, whatever it is. It's a good time to say, you know what, that creates so much stress in my life. I don't want it back.
Mhm.
So,
Marie Kondo came to mind. Like,
Mm.
I know that's to look at your house and pick it up and say, does this have meaning? It's almost the same thing. It's like, we
Yep.
got to Marie Kondo our lives, our
brain.
schedules.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I was thinking of the other thing too, that I think, to echo what Megan said about going slow, that may be hard to do if you're surrounded by people who are going at a faster pace than you are, which you're probably starting to see. And I think that the other critical piece there is that what's good for you and your household is not going to be the same as what's good for this person in their household. And you might start to like look around and say, am I being unreasonable? You might start to second guess your feelings, or sort of, because we're social creatures. So we that saying, if someone else jumped off a bridge, would you? We say that for a reason, because we start to look at what the crowd is doing and say, okay, I guess that's what we're supposed to do too. But really, there's no right or wrong answer here. And just because one person is signing their kids up for all sorts of stuff and getting together with people on the weekends because now they're vaccinated and they can, doesn't mean you have to do that also, or that you're being uber anything by deciding not to.
Right.
So yeah.
And that's a good time to be kind to yourself. So really looking at what's going on around you. You might be the person who you're so ready for friends and sports and holidays together and barbecues and all of these things that are coming down the pike, and you're feeling good about it. And then just all of a sudden you're sad, or, you're freaked out, or and that's an okay feeling too, that it might not be a static a state of fear or grief or anxiety. There just might be these moments that hit you, whether that be from a loss of a person. It can be as stupid as, like you're grieving the fact that you can't wear sweatpants to work anymore.
That's true.
Right, you only see us from the waist up, so but that, to be prepared for that you may have these moments of, feeling whatever you're feeling, and that's okay too.
Yeah. And know that they're normal. Plan for them. Anticipate them ahead of time.
Yeah,
for sure. I would add that self-care is important during this time too, in addition to being kind to yourself. So what are some good self-care strategies, we think?
Well, I know that sometimes when people hear self-care, they automatically think like bubble baths and things like that. But which, yes, that is self-care. But also just like the basics. When I think about self-care, I also think about like, are you exercising? How are you sleeping? How are you eating? So like, are you making sure that you're doing all of that stuff? I really, with everyone I work with, I'm always talking to them about sleep, because sleep is so important. So I would say starting with those things, I think, is really important. But then I also think making sure that people are fitting in time to do things that really like nurture their soul, things that you really enjoy, things that you find comfort in. And it could be related to like exercise, mindfulness, things like that, but it might also be the bubble baths and stuff like that too. That
Or
come.
some retail therapy or something like that.
yeah.
Although, let's be honest, haven't we all been, as I said, the poor woman with her dog, I mean, people have been just resorting to other types of retail therapy. But
Right.
yeah. So all in all, I think the message we want to give, because people are, again, in so many different places, whether you have children, you don't have children, you've been impacted by this last year in some way. Some of us more so than others. And it may not even be you that's experiencing anxiety. Let's say you have a child who's been, doing school remotely for an entire year. And now all of a sudden the state is saying, okay, now it's time to go back to school 5 days a week in person. It's like, okay, wait, is there a baby step we could take in between, and so it's asking a lot of us, whether it's school or otherwise, to make this, it doesn't need to be a leap, I guess, from where we've been to back to what things used to be like. And in fact, it's, as we've said, a really great opportunity to Marie Kondo your life and decide, what you want to go back to, what you don't want to. And that all of those feelings are very, very normal and there's no right or wrong answer. Of course, safety is something that we want to emphasize here,
Right.
That we do need to take care of ourselves and each other. We are still in a pandemic, as Shannon was saying. But so, be kind to yourself, be patient, go slow. There's no right or wrong answer. And then at the end of the day, if you feel like you need some extra support around navigating this, maybe you're experiencing a level of anxiety that's really kind of paralyzing, that's the time to go talk to a professional about it and get some support around that, because it's going to take some time. It's not going to happen overnight if you're experiencing some anxiety around this.
Yeah.
So, do you guys have any last thoughts to add to this conversation? I can't believe our time has gone by so fast.
No, that went by really quick.
Well, I was just going to say, I think too, in addition to professional help, to support one another, that, I'm thinking about, this is going to sound super lame, but I'm thinking about like geese in the sky, right? So they fly in a V, which means that there's a goose or bird, a winged creature in the front of that V.
Yeah.
And that while they're traveling, it's never that same bird that's in the front.
Mm-hmm.
They change so that the one taking the brunt of the wind is always a different bird.
Mm-hmm.
And that it's important through this to change birds in your house or in your pod or your whatever it is, that you don't have to be the one taking care of. Let other people help you. It's a big ask right now, and so use your support systems.
And you're reminding me, because this is going to come up, it's natural human behavior. Shaming is, try not to engage in that, okay? Because I think you're going to have opinions about what other people are doing, and you might be the recipient of I know there's a thing called mom shaming, but I think this could just be like people shaming, that I think it's natural for that to come up, but please be kind to each other also, because none of us know what the other has been through, and whether you think somebody's going too fast or too slow, just support each other. As Shannon, I thought that's where you were going with the geese idea, but that some people are more comfortable being out in the front of the V, and some need to be towards the back because that's a better, more comfortable place for them. But so let's all be geese, okay?
Right.
That's not what I thought I would say at the end of today's show. Let's all be geese.
Right. And we're not going to play the end sign. We're just going to honk.
Yes.
The outro.
I can't do it. All right. It's 10:30. How that happened, I don't know. This was fun, guys. It was a different format for today. We are hoping we're hoping to embark on a series of coffee talk episodes to talk about stages of development. So we get asked a lot from parents about, is this normal? It's a really hard, I mean, there is no normal. We're all different, but there are certain things that humans develop during certain stages of life that
Typical.
is typical, right? Typical part of human experience. How that manifests itself in different people's lives looks a little different. So we thought it would be helpful to talk about what happens during different stages of development, what that could look like for one person or another. And then there might be some conversation as we go along about how this pandemic we've been through affects those different stages, and how parents or family members, because it's not always that you're a parent to somebody, how we can support each other in getting our needs met. I say hope because we are trying to line up different guests for those different stages. So we'll have more information for you soon. We're not 100% sure on what's happening first. We might skip around with the different stages, but ultimately we're very excited to talk about these with you. It's helpful for all of us to remember,
And actually, for sure, we're going to have Elizabeth Englander back next week. Dr.
Good. Oh,
Englander
good.
is the author of, or the co-author of, the amazingly awesome pandemic playbook. I think I got that wrong, but it's a book we all know and love, and they're working on some new stuff, and it very much connects to this conversation. So we'll start with early childhood, or
School age,
no,
right?
school age.
Yeah, so
Cool.
she what is that age range? It's like 8 to 11 or something like that. Yeah. So eventually we should have somebody that's going to come on to talk to us about early childhood, which is like infancy to preschool-ish.
Yeah.
Or to kindergarten, perhaps. We'll do school age. We have adolescent, adulthood. We're even going to talk about adults and what we, need developmentally and so on. So we hope you will join us, and thank you for tuning in today, and we hope to see you next week. Take care, everyone.